The air, off the air, vignettes that are the things that you talk about or maybe talk about tonight?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to boil them down. Well, I talked about Mann's hazing me as sort of the road rookie early on. There were obviously games coming to mind, the playoff game in Cleveland at the end of the '89 season. The Bills lost, actually, but it was just an amazing finish. Ronnie Harmon dropped a pass in the end zone, and then Kelly was intercepted by Clay Matthews to basically end the Bills' chances. And it ended kind of a bumpy season for the Bills, but you could tell they were on the cusp of being a really good team, and that they almost couldn't get out of their way in many ways that season, and that game sort of symbolized it. That was also the game that I think was the birth of the no-huddle offense, the K-gun offense. So that was probably one of my most memorable games. I'm thinking of memorable moments. I mean, we had a lot of, we did a game in Cincinnati once. We employ spotters, and we bring them our own spotters now, but we used to employ, for $50 a game, a spotter whose job would be to help the play-by-play guy identify names and numbers. And in Cincinnati once, Cincinnati was notorious for being the cheapest NFL organization. They probably still are. And the public relations department was always a little bit shaky. So the Cincinnati PR guy, I forget his name, Van could tell you, assigned the spotter to our broadcast. The guy came in with sunglasses on, wraparound sunglasses, an older gentleman, and Van said to him, are you going to be okay? And he goes, oh, yeah, I had surgery the other day, but I'm okay. And Van was a little, worried. And game begins, and the guy had no idea what he was doing, just no idea. He couldn't identify, he was no help at all to Van, just couldn't identify the players. And we get to the first commercial break, and Van said, are you okay? What happened with your surgery? Well, the guy took off his sunglasses, and he had a patch on one eye. We had a one-eyed spotter. He had surgery. And the guy said, yeah, I thought I was okay, but I got this good eye. I'm kind of seeing double. Oh. And Van said, well, just divide the number by 2 and point to somebody. Yeah. I mean, it was classic Van Miller. We laughed about that. We still laugh about the one-eyed spotter in Cincinnati. We had an incident a couple of years ago, and Van was off the broadcast. I was doing play-by-play. I think I was working with Alex Van Pelt as a color man. And at the time, I would do pregame show. I would help with the pregame show in the Bills Fieldhouse, which is adjacent to the parking lot there. And we'd finish up there and really have to hustle to get into the booth. I had like 10 minutes to go from Fieldhouse to go to the men's room and get in the booth. I mean, it was tough. You had to run. So you're kind of running across the parking lot. It was me, my son Mark, who was spotting for us at the time, and my friend Mike Mullane, who also was a spotter for home games. And we were crossing across the parking lot, and they have guardrails, metal guardrails. And I'm sort of, jumping over this guardrail, and I accidentally got the inseam of my pants hooked on the bolt on the guardrail and ripped the inseam from basically the crotch all the way down to the ankle. My pants are flying in the breeze. Now it's a half hour before kickoff. So they're laughing, and we, put some electrical tape on it, and it looks stupid, and they were making fun of me, Van Pelt, everybody. So I decided, well, I only live 5 minutes away. So I called my wife, Mary, who had just come home from Mass, 12 o'clock Mass. It's like 1 o'clock. I mean, kickoff is in a minute or two. And I said, Mary, you got to help me out. I need a pair of pants. She goes, what? I said, you got to bring me a pair of pants. There's a pair of khakis in the closet. You got to bring them. She said, what happened? I said, I ripped my pants. She said, you what, your pants? I said, I ripped my pants. I ripped my pants, cell phone. So she shows up without a press pass or any ticket at the outer gate of the stadium and, with a pair of pants, and the police recognize her. And they say, see, what's going on, Mary? Well, my husband John needs this pair of pants. I said, oh, come on. So apparently she jumped on the back of the motorcycle with the pants on a hanger, and the mounted motorcycle police officer drove her up to the press box door, and she walked in, and like first or second commercial break in the first quarter, she's standing in the back of the press box with my pants. It was pretty funny. I still hear about that a lot too.
Who were those couple of guys that were really good interviews, insightful, who really had a handle on the game?
Yeah, Mark Kelso was one, which is why he's good at what he does now on the radio broadcast. Tasker was good. They had a safety, Henry Jones, who I always thought was smart and insightful. Van Pelt, even when Alex would go weeks, if not months, and never play, but he knew what he was watching, and he knew what was going on, and that's why I always like to go to Van Pelt. Kent Hull was tremendous as far as insight, and he sort of opened up the emotional side of what was going on many times, There was a lot of good ones, a lot of good guys.
What about those ones you just couldn't believe? you sat there with their interview and said, "My God, who am I talking with?" You know.
Yeah, one of them's going in the Hall of Fame this summer. But Bruce, I think, has grown up a lot. But he was, he's kind of full of himself, and I don't think I would have to say I was never close with him. And even though you had to interview him because he was a spectacular player and a gifted athlete, it was just hard sometimes to get by his ego to get to the truth of the matter. It was difficult to watch the end of Kelly's career, and the way I always have that image in my head in the playoff game against Jacksonville when he suffered a concussion and got carted off the field. I mean, that was the last image of Jim Kelly playing for the Buffalo Bills. Mm-hmm. That was tough to watch. One difficult day was it had to be, I think it was February 2000, when they cut Bruce Smith, Thurman Thomas, and Andre Reed same day. I mean, two of them are in the Hall of Fame. The other one probably will be. That's unprecedented in the NFL, right. A team releasing 3 Hall of Famers the same day. And you could see it coming, and I knew it was coming, but it was a difficult day, and it was difficult. Bruce went on to have more production. Neither Andre nor Thurman had a whole lot left in the tank. But, in an earlier era, there's no way those guys would have finished their careers elsewhere. It was a difficult day to have, and I know it wore heavily on John Butler, who was the general manager at the time. I mean, who cuts 3 potential Hall of Famers in one day? But that was the era of the hard salary cap, and they just couldn't find a way to keep all 3 of them.
The miracle of Music City.
Yeah.
Would you ready to jump out the booth?
Yeah. I don't like the way I've heard tapes of our broadcast, and I would have done that differently. I didn't like the way I reacted to it. I think I got too emotional about it. The referee was awful, and he still works games. He's not a referee anymore. Phil Luckett. He's a line judge or something. He's terrible. And he was in the throes of having a very rough couple of years. He botched a coin flip in a game in Detroit, same guy. So I think that kind of weighed into the way I was thinking about the end of that game. I do believe that was an illegal forward pass still, but, it'll never be proven, obviously. That game, that team was really good. And that was still had Bruce Smith and Thurman Thomas and Andre Reed. That was their last game with the Bills, right? It had to be, 99 season, yeah. That team was probably poised to make one more run at the Super Bowl that year. And that one play changed the fortunes of a million things, including those 3 players that I talked about, including, John Butler. He was out after the next season. Rob Johnson, it changed his perception. He led the team. He made the start, a controversial play because they bypassed Flutie to put Rob Johnson in, led the team downfield, put him in position for what should have been the game-winning field goal. That was brutal. Yeah. Changed the fortune of a guy who was a pretty good friend of mine, Bruce DeHaven, the special teams coach. That game changed a lot of NFL futures. That play changed a lot of NFL futures. That was unforgettable. In a negative way. And as far as our broadcast, I wish I would have reacted differently to it. I kind of got too emotional, I think.
I forget now.
I don't remember what I said, but I know I've heard it, and I thought, yeah. Van played into that too, because Van was pretty emotional. I don't know. I just think I should have been more. I should have been a little bit less emotional. I always, when we're doing the games, I think of the people in cars. A lot of people will listen to games while they watch on TV, or I know people out of town who people will listen to our games while they watch, the satellite feed or something. And that's good, and you want to be good for them. But I really think of the people who need me to tell them what's going on, driving in a car somewhere. And I want to be good. On those games, I want to have the basics down and distance. Make sure you're not saying what's the score. Make sure you're not saying where's the ball. You want to make sure people have a picture of the game. So that I listen to those games and ask myself, was that any good? Not, boy, I was good. It's more like, geez, was that any good?
Yeah. Does Van critique you?
Yeah, once in a while. It's always positive, good critique. He has something to say. He's very encouraging. Yeah.
Who's your role model?
In broadcasting, Van, obviously.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great broadcasters. Van is one of them, obviously, and I guess he's a role model. But I hear a lot of guys that do great work. There's a lot of baseball announcers I love. Ernie Harwell, I guess. I've always admired his work in Detroit. One of the great things about satellite radio, I don't know if you guys have satellite radio, you get to hear broadcasts from all over America, and football broadcasts. And I hear a lot of good broadcasts sometimes. And I steal good ideas, Hey, that sounds pretty good. Not lines or phrases, but that's a good idea to do that there instead of here, that sort of thing.